the greatest teacher failure is.
Alexander Fleming, accidentally leaving his petri dishes open, discovered penicillin when he noticed mold forming to create a substance that destroyed the bacteria around it. Spencer Silver failed to create an ultra-strength adhesive, creating instead an easily peelable substance which Art Fry then used to hold bookmarks in place, and that became the Post-it. Charles Goodyear accidentally boiled a concoction of rubber and sulfur, discovering a plastic created by what we now call vulcanization, used in things like water bottles and many other useful implements. Wilson Greatbatch pulled the wrong part out of a box of equipment, plugging the wrong resistor into his heart rhythm recording device to create the pacemaker, now installed in over 500,000 humans per year to save their lives. These are just a few examples of people making mistakes that turned out to be something so much more valuable than what they were after. Think of the billions of mistakes that have led to more knowledge and a better effort leading to success afterwards. In this video, I'm going to share one of my favorite mistakes and what I did about it. Stay tuned to the end to find out what it taught me, why it was so valuable, and the principle to sum it up. I had been in leadership positions before deciding to completely change my vocation yet again, starting over in a new industry and working in a bank. I rose quickly enough, and my former leadership experience and aptitude for training others how to succeed paved the way for opportunities to lead again. I was operating in a non-official leadership capacity, filling in for a supervisor on leave, when one of my favorite mistakes occurred. A manager, we'll call her Helen, who had a reputation for being tightly wound, approached me one night addressing a concern she had where it appeared my department was going to close an hour early. Helen wasn't aware this had happened the week before. A leader who reported directly to Helen, we'll call her Autumn, had solved the problem caused by the low amount of staff on my team and terrible coincidences with time-off scheduling. Autumn simply had some of her people jump in and cover the open hour. I had already spoken to her for this week as well. She was all set to do the same. So I was surprised to be confronted by Autumn's boss, Helen, who seemed overly agitated about the situation. Helen was making it clear that nobody on her team was authorized to cover for my team. My approach was pretty typical based on my tendency to operate this way. If nothing is on fire and nobody is dying, there is no need to act with the urgency one might associate with those dire circumstances. Helen was the opposite. Everything was at 10, and she was highly territorial. She was clearly put off by my approach when I let her know that everything was sorted, as it had been last week, and we also had plans to solve going forward so nobody had to cover for us again. As I mentioned, she was not interested in having her team help, so when she brought that up, I asked innocently, "So was Autumn lying to me about helping?" That was, I believe, the moment that Helen made a decision she would go on to create a very long grudge with. Her eyes went wide, she turned to my team and spoke to them as though I was no longer there, asking for somebody to stay for overtime. Admittedly, a pretty easy fix to the problem. One of my coworkers, who'd watched the interaction leading up to this, took pity on me and volunteered. Helen found the Huff train and immediately embarked on it, leaving a rain cloud of tension a guillotine would struggle to sever. The next morning I was approached by my leader, and after that his leader, who was Helen's peer. Both asked me how the night before went, and I answered that it seemed pretty normal except for a strange interaction with this woman. Both asked me to extrapolate, and when I did, they informed me that she had gone back to her desk to compose an email that would be sent to every manager in the department, the site leader, and the regional leader, explaining what a band of misfits my team was and what a horrible person I am. I'm going to pause here to say, no, I am actually not kidding or exaggerating. She actively set out to torpedo my career because of the interaction I described. Perhaps you agree with her actions. Maybe you empathize with her having to deal with a person who proactively solves problems and doesn't see the need to squabble over whose resources are utilized to make sure the job gets done and the customers get taken care of. You may not like the rest of what I have to say in that case. You've been warned. I was taught, in this instance, to be more mindful of my audience. I certainly recognize that she was a person who feels significance in her life, primarily when she can make a big enough deal out of a thing. That situation gave me the opportunity to have a pulse, sit up in my chair, and ask her if there was anything else she'd like me to do in addition to having already solved the issue. Instead, my calm demeanor was read as apathy. My genuine question of communication was read as sarcasm, and I instantly became her enemy forever. That's the rest of that story. This petty, conniving, angry little woman went on to make it her mission to defame my character for the next decade. She lied, cajoled, and whispered in the ear of anybody who would listen in order to echo her initial sentiments sent out in that email designed to take me down before I ever got up. Fortunately, when you're not actually a bad person, lies about you are rarely believed, especially when you create a track record of success and unmatched loyalty. She didn't stop my career. In fact, I imagine she had to repeatedly swallow the jagged pill of my team's top performance, more than overshadowing her mediocre production, for years as I continued to climb through the ranks. My mistake? Not leveraging what I knew about my audience to craft effective communication. The price? I made a pathetic but persistent enemy for life. Let me be clear. If it's not obvious by my language, I in no way support this person's reaction to a misunderstanding. In fact, I feel sorry for her because her life must be miserable. How could it not, if this is how she rolls? However, I have the choice of looking back on that situation and blaming her for its entirety. After all, she was obviously the kind of person whose bad side is very easy to get on, and it was likely only a matter of time before our personalities would clash. But it was, in fact, all my fault. There was absolutely a creep tingle I experienced when she approached me, and I absolutely had the opportunity to obey it and handle the situation she would have preferred. Instead, I let the chip on my shoulder do the talking, the one that's always had a dusting of an issue with authority and little patience for histrionics, and opted out of communicating effectively with her. While the price hasn't impacted much more than my opinion of her, it was extraordinarily fortunate for me to have learned the value of knowing my audience was such a dramatic overreactor. Otherwise, it might have taken me longer to dial that one in. This, in my opinion, is how all mistakes should be viewed. This story is one of my favorite mistakes because it not only demonstrates with clarity my error in judgment, it also showcases another lesson in what a leader should not do when dealing with someone who has made an error in judgment. I have since made it my mission to not only be accepting of mistakes, but a huge fan of them. Anybody who's worked for me has seen this played out. Regardless of the shame or guilt they felt before confronting me with their mistake, my only reply is, "Great, what's the plan?" Because she gave me such a stellar example of how to be a horrible leader, she sent me in the opposite direction, and my team's successes spoke for themselves thanks to that effort. Now I get very excited about mistakes, anxious to learn from others as much as from my own, and practically get giddy when hearing about them. I started this video with a quote from Yoda because, in its simplicity, I could not find it more accurate. Just about everything of value I have learned has come from a mistake, whether mine or someone else's. And for that reason, mistakes should be viewed as the gift they are. The principle. Learn to love mistakes as they are often the most valuable and efficient means of education. Bonus principle. Know and honor your audience. In this video, I mentioned creep tingles. Want to see other ways you can push yourself and improve your view of the world and yourself? Watch this video on creep tingles. Thanks for watching the video, and be sure to subscribe for more like it. Click on the notification bell to be alerted to new videos.